second of 2 playoff practices, and I am joined by Stanley Cup playoffs correspondent Scott Burnside to take us in to Game 1. Now, Scott, you've been around this team for the last couple of days. Where is the mindset and the mentality of this group as they head off to Alberta?
Zach, first of all, let me tell you, I'm so pumped to be here. It's great to join you.
I went right into business there, Scott. Yeah, we'll have a little fun with this.
I'm glad that you did, because it is all business now as we get ready for Game 1 of what is the third straight playoff meeting between the Edmonton Oilers and the Los Angeles Kings. And you asked about a mindset. You know, to me, I think about this team and the ability to hit the reset button after Game 82. You know, obviously it wasn't a great ending to the regular season for the Kings, but to me, you watch the veteran leadership of Anze Kopitar, Drew Doughty, Trevor Lewis, Phil Deneau, Victor Arvidsson, go down the list. I think this team is well poised to hit a reset button and really start Game 1 with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh mindset in Edmonton. I frankly think it's better for this team to start on the road, no distractions, really focus on putting their game into place against an Edmonton team that they have gone toe-to-toe with over the last 2 playoff series.
We know how good this team was on the road at the beginning of the season, right? An NHL record, 11 straight road wins out of the gates. And we know that the Kings have gone into Edmonton and won Game 1 in each of the last 2 years. But this isn't the same exact Kings team, right? It can't be the same formula. What's a little bit different about this year's group?
Well, I think part of this team, you know, people look at it and go, oh my goodness, 3 straight series, same old, same old. Listen, this Los Angeles Kings team is very different. Even though the names are mostly the same, so many of these players who have had the experience over the last 2 years are going to be asked to do a lot more. Trevor Moore is one. He's turned into a bona fide NHL scorer, an elite NHL player. You know, Jordan Spence played in 3 games 2 years ago. He's had a full year under his belt, part of a very good and deep defensive alignment now. Kevin Fiala was injured for part of the series last year. When he played, he was extremely productive. He's part of a forward group. I think the way that Jim Hiller has aligned this group, very deep. All 4 lines have the potential to hurt you offensively, have defensive responsibility. I just think this is a much more mature team than certainly the last 2 years. They've learned a lot. We're going to see whether they can put that learning into practice.
That's certainly the case. And obviously at the top, some things never change, right? It's Anze Kopitar as your 1C, Drew Doughty as your number 1 defenseman. Those guys have been to the top of the mountain and they've won, but the rest of this group has gained experience over the last couple of years as well. Very few guys in this roster have never played in the playoffs. Most of these guys have played a game in Edmonton. So how important is that in year 3 to use that experience to their advantage?
Yeah, I think it's critical, actually. And to me, so much of a playoff series, because you know, it can become over very quickly. And I think controlling your emotions early on, again, I think that's a great way to start on the road where you don't have the distractions, you don't have that home crowd that maybe forces you out of your game. But I think the ability to play the style that the Kings want to play, control the emotions early. You don't want to get into penalty trouble against this Edmonton Oilers team. That's obvious. I think the Kings' strength is rolling 4 lines. I liken them a little bit to the Vegas Golden Knights of a year ago, who, of course, won their first ever Stanley Cup based on 4 lines, grinding the opponents down round after round. I think the Kings have that ability, but you got to control the emotions early on, and I think this team has that leadership that should be definitely within the realm of possibility.
Well, Scott, for me, I think that's the X factor, right? It's that depth scoring. If you look at last year's series, obviously the Oilers have their big guns, but they got a lot of production from lower in the lineup that the Kings didn't match. You talk about Klim Kostin, you talk about Nick Bjugstad, a game-winning goal, a series-winning goal from Kyler Yamamoto, and when they went 11-7, Leon Draisaitl, very productive when he skated on the 4th line. So the Kings now have 4 lines they believe can match up against anyone. That starts down the middle, right? Kopitar, Deneau, Dubois, and Lizotte. What's an X factor for you going into whether it's Game 1 or for this series as a whole?
Yeah, well, and it's something you wrote about so eloquently, but this is the first time, it's amazing to think about, really, first time that Jim Hiller is going to have a full complement of players at his disposal when he sets his lineup for Game 1. The health of this team, you know, it's never been there, and I think at the playoff start especially, it's so critical. You know, Jim Hiller he's got lots of options and how he aligns things, but I think the health of this team going into the playoffs is something that gives them potential for early success against the Edmonton Oilers.
Health throughout the lineup, a lot of confidence, a good mindset heading in. We'll see how it plays out on the ice tomorrow in Game 1.